Suicide prevention Megathread. A person from my past reaching out to me, even for 5 minutes, does exceptionally more for my mental well-being than seeing 10,000 Redditors spam the numbers for different suicide prevention hotlines. Please reach out to the people in your life. You can keep it as light as you want. We're social creatures, and even limited interaction goes a very long way. My brother committed suicide when I was 8. He was 15. My dad has been abusive, but my brother suffered the most from him. He was my hero. I looked up to him and wanted to be like him. He'd take the fall for me when I did something that would cause my dad to punish me. I remember that morning vividly. I got back from school the previous day and went to go hang out with him in his room, but his door was locked. I kept coming back, but he wouldn't answer the door. My parents weren't worried because my brother usually kept to himself like that. When it was time for bed, I told my dad to see if he could get the door open, and he told me not to bother my brother again. After my brother didn't come down for breakfast, my father broke his door, and we found him hanging from the ceiling. I wish I didn't see that. I screamed the entire time and wouldn't let go of his hand. It felt cold, and my mother had to peel me away. He left a suicide note and a handwritten will. He left me his favorite book. I miss you, Jeff. Edit 2. My dad kept repeating, "Why, Jeffrey, why?" and tried to get him down from the fan. I was screaming, "Please, Jeff," and pulling his hand, and when my mom couldn't separate our hands, she pulled me away. She was crying so hard. I remember kicking my legs in the air and screaming, "You should have opened his door for me." Edit 3. The book is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I always carry it with me now. Whenever he'd read it to me, I'd make fun of how the big words sounded funny and we'd laugh. There wasn't much in his will. He left me the book and his Game Boy. He left my mom his wristwatch. My dad didn't get anything in the will. I'm the mother of a toddler who died of cancer. There is nothing anyone could do to prevent me from killing myself besides listening and being present. I didn't reach out to anyone. Being suicidal means you want to die. No one could have talked me out of it. My family knew I was struggling, and they took shifts watching me. They bought me my favorite foods, watched RuPaul's Drag Race with me for weeks. Seriously, for some reason it was the only thing I could watch. They listened to me cry, and didn't try to give me solutions. They just said, "I know." We had a code word, potato. If I said potato, that meant that I needed someone to be physically present with me, quickly. There was always a plan for the next day, tomorrow we're going to have lunch at that Mexican place. Okay, tomorrow let's look for a special garden marker for Miles. I think that was a big part of it. Having a plan for the next day meant I had to keep going. It's been almost 4 months since my 3-year-old died, and I'm still living. That's pretty fucking amazing. I also lost a son named Miles. He was a week old. It was sudden. One day he was healthy, pink, and screaming. The next he was blue and going into cardiac arrest. He would be turning 10 this the 2nd of July. My only show I can watch was the awful dating show, Next, on MTV. The night he died, my husband, boyfriend at the time, and I sat in a hotel room, because we couldn't possibly go home and face his stuff, and played a cooperative board game all night long. We took breaks to cry and scream, and then kept playing. That stupid game kept me alive, I'm sure of it. I also had to always have a plan for tomorrow, even if it was just what I was going to have for breakfast. There were days that I would cry so hard I thought the crying alone would kill me. I had to force myself to stop, certain I was about to literally die of a broken heart. I'm so sorry for your loss. 4 months is still so fresh. I'm nearly a decade out, and some days I still can't believe I'm a member of this shitty club. Understand that the grief may come in waves. Close together and fierce at first, and then slowing down, giving some time and space before the next one pummels you. Make sure your support people are still around in case you need to call out. Potato again. 6 months from now. I can be one of those support people. There is nothing that makes it easier, but time and support can help it be more manageable. Also, talking about him can help. I hated that once he was gone people wanted to pretend he never existed. Fuck that. Your son was here, and he was amazing. Talk about him. Much love to you and your Miles. My mom killed herself on the 22nd of April of this year. My dad found her naked, fallen off the side of the bed, with 3 empty pill bottles, 2 knives, and a razor. She was covered in vomit. The ambulance came, but she was unresponsive. They waited until I arrived to ask if they could stop resuscitation attempts, which they tried to do for over an hour. We went in when they stopped. She was half covered with a sheet. There was a lot of blood and vomit. Her ribs were broken from resuscitation attempts. She was just gone. My dad and I are totally lost. Last December I checked into a psych ward instead of killing myself. Fuck depression. I lost my mother to suicide as well on the 10th of March 2010. I happened to be the one to find her, and had a really rough first year without her. I was forcibly checked into a 72-hour hold around Mother's Day that year. My heart goes out to you, and your father. You may be lost now, but take it from someone who has been in your shoes, you will not be lost forever. You may wander throughout your life, because pain like this does not go away, but you will not remain lost. Fuck depression and keep talking about it. I attempted suicide at 19. I think the hardest thing for non-suicidal people to understand is that a lot of suicidal people don't want to kill themselves, they just want to stop existing. Actually going through the steps of writing a note and taking the pills was extremely difficult, and all I kept thinking the whole time was that it would be so much easier if I could just fall asleep and never wake up. It was scary to think that I was potentially killing myself, whereas a death I couldn't control or had less control over would just happen. Then there's everyone and everything else to consider. I also have caught myself wishing many times that the whole world would end so that I could stop existing, but then neither myself nor my loved ones would have to deal with the pain or miss out on a good life. I found those things really hard to articulate at 19. It's how a lot of depressed people feel. I wish this was up last week. A very close friend of mine committed suicide in the second. She was only 19 and could light up a room when she came in. The worst thing is feeling like I could have stopped her. After work the day before, she asked me if I wanted to go out. I didn't because I was tired and had to clean. My heart hurts. Her memorial was yesterday. It's still such a raw wound. I'm sorry I had to get this off my chest. I did not write this but have permission to share. Just saw this elsewhere on the internet in reference to recent events. For obvious reasons, at least. For anyone who has had to listen to me bitch about how much I hate winter, it really resonated with me. When you have depression, it's like it snows every day. Some days it's only a couple of inches. It's a pain in the ass, but you still make it to work, the grocery store. Sure, maybe you skip the gym or your friend's birthday party, but it is still snowing and who knows how bad it might get tonight. Probably better to just head home. Your friend notices, but probably just thinks you are flaky now, or kind of an asshole. Some days it snows a foot. You spend an hour shoveling out your driveway, and are late to work. Your back and hands hurt from shoveling. You leave early because it's really coming down out there. Your boss notices. Some days it snows 4 feet. You shovel all morning but your street never gets plowed. You are not making it to work, or anywhere else for that matter. You are so sore and tired you just get back in bed. By the time you wake up, all your shoveling has filled back in with snow. Looks like your phone rang. People are wondering where you are. You don't feel like calling them back, too tired from all the shoveling. Plus they don't get this much snow at their house, so they don't understand why you are still stuck at home. They just think you're lazy or weak, although they rarely come out and say it. Some weeks it's a full-blown blizzard. When you open your door, it's a wall of snow. The power flickers, then goes out. It's too cold to sit in the living room anymore, so you get back into bed with all your clothes on. The stove and microwave won't work, so you eat a cold Pop-Tart and call that dinner. You haven't taken a shower in 3 days, but how could you at this point? You're too cold to do anything except sleep. Sometimes people get snowed in for the winter. The cold seeps in. No communication in or out. The food runs out. What can you even do? Tunnel out of a 40-foot snowbank with your hands? How far away is help? Can you even get there in a blizzard? If you do, can they even help you at this point? Maybe it's death to stay here, but it's death to go out there too. The thing is, when it snows all the time, you get worn all the way down. You get tired of being cold. You get tired of hurting all the time from shoveling. But if you don't shovel on the light days, it builds up to something unmanageable on the heavy days. You resent the hell out of the snow. But it doesn't care. It's just a blind chemistry, an act of nature. It carries on regardless, unconcerned and unaware if it buries you or the whole world. Also, the snow builds up in other areas, places you can't shovel, sometimes places you can't even see. Maybe it's on the roof. Maybe it's on the mountain behind the house. Sometimes, there's an avalanche that blows the house right off its foundation and takes you with it. A veritable act of God. Nothing can be done. The neighbors say it's a shame and they can't understand it. He was doing so well with his shoveling.